Welcome to T4G Sports. In today's video, we're going to talk the Buckeyes versus the Oregon Ducks. This is going to be our prediction for the game here, and this is going to be a tough game. Like always, guys, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave your comments down below. Who do you think is going to win this one? This game is history in the making, folks. This is going to be something that you're going to remember forever. October 12th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m., you're going to remember this day. You are going to remember it because this is a rivalry in the making. This is the first time the playoff has been expanded to 12 teams. The realignment, conference realignment that was in massive proportions is now taking place, and you're seeing all these teams battle. This is the first time the Big Ten has welcomed in Oregon, and they're playing for them. And now they're going to be hosting Ohio State, who is a very great team. You have Chip Kelly, who was the head coach of Oregon, who took Oregon to the Natty and lost to Ohio State, who's now the offense coordinator for Ohio State, the running back coach, who was at Oregon, who leaves and comes to Ohio State. You have players that both coaching staffs have been recruiting for a very, very long time. They know these teams on a personal level. McClellan, who decommits from Ohio State, the wide receiver, decommits from Ohio State, I believe on signing day, and commits to Oregon. You have Mateo, who the D-end, who was heavily recruited by Ohio State and USC, was favored to go to Ohio State at one moment, and commits to Oregon. There is so much connection between these two teams. You have Oregon, who went to Ohio State in 2021 and beat them with C.J. Stroud at the shoe. There is so much between these two teams that this is a rivalry in the making. This is going to be the loudest atmosphere I believe Oregon has ever seen. I think this game is a must-watch. This is history in the making, folks. The two elements that I'm concerned about for both these teams is quarterback play. Dillon Gabriel, he has the pressure of doing well in his home crowd, in front of his home crowd, and that's a lot of pressure. Will Howard has the pressure of you should win every single game, and you're expected to win the Natty. Like that type of pressure. So there's two different dynamics of pressure there. Plus, Will Howard has to go to a home crowd that's going to be the most electric home crowd in the country, in the history of Oregon, I believe. It's going to be nuts. Okay, everyone's wanting to go to this game. I can't even imagine how much tickets are at this point. You say tickets as low as $235. Bullshit. You're sitting up in the parking lot. So there's a lot of pressure going with him. Now, with Dillon Gabriel, I'll say this with him. He times worries me because, like, against Michigan State, he threw 2 interceptions where he believed that he was going to get the ball there. He believed it. The defender just undercut the route and ran faster than he thought he would, and so it was like he didn't understand the speed. And that concerned me because that's got to be kind of a crazy moment for a quarterback going, I was pretty confident I was going to get the ball there, and that guy was much faster than I thought he was. So it's a little bit good because you can rebound from that and then be quicker the next week, which would be a good learning lesson for him. Or you could be kind of go about it and be a little bit nervous about that. And I don't know how he's going to handle that. And when he does get nervous, they tend to run him. They try to calm him down by running him. And so I would recommend to him to slide, for the love of God. Don't try to do too much and get a fumble or an injury because you're trying to do too much and trying to save the day. Don't do that. Okay, so that's some of the things I'd noticed with Dillon Gabriel. Will Howard is kind of equal in the same regard where there's a question mark to him. At times he'll just make dumb decisions and throw stupid footballs. And then other times he'll throw one of the best red zone passes you've ever seen. Like just right in the bucket, perfect fade route, just dumps it right in. It's just, oh, it's beautiful. Okay, beautiful. And then running wise too, he's like not confident in himself. He's not confident in his running ability. So both of these quarterbacks, I do have some question marks on how they're going to play. To win, Dillon Gabriel needs to not worry about the D-line. Allow your linemen to block for you. You obviously have pocket presence, know when to escape. They're probably going to have a quarterback spy on you. Probably be Sonny Styles, maybe Cody Simon. I would be shocked if it's Cody Simon. They could perhaps have C.J. Hicks on that. I don't know. Sonny Styles is your fastest guy. He's a safety that's converted down to linebacker, 6'4", 220 pounds, a little bit more probably, incredibly fast. He can over pursue at times, but he's a ferocious competitor. So they'll probably have some form of a spy on Dillon Gabriel to a degree. They'll have checks and balances. So he needs to just play clean and trust the process, and then make sure he keeps, because they're working on him getting the ball out of his hands quite fast. They want 2.5 seconds is what they're looking at, and that's what they're going to need from him in this game. So he's going to have to rely on that. For Will Howard, obviously just don't give the crowd an opportunity to get in this game, because the biggest thing that you have to silence is the crowd. Okay, the defense is going to do a decent job at that. The offense cannot bring them back into it. That's the thing. The defense for Ohio State is going to make stops. There's probably going to be turnovers to some degree because that defense is vicious. You cannot give them the energy back because that defense is going to be trying to do the exact same thing, and that defense can get turnovers just as much. Maybe not quite to the same level because they don't have the same players, but they could do it just enough to win that football game. So you have to be smart. So that's kind of what I'm seeing with the two quarterbacks there. The defense, I think Oregon's defense can play great football. Ohio State, obviously, they can play great football. That's the best defense in the country. At least for me, I've not seen a defense with that much talent. That talent is reminds me of a Saban defense in his prime. It's so talented. You got to allow them to do their jobs and not make their jobs hard on both sides of the ball, and that's for both those quarterbacks. Now, if we go over the last 5 weeks for Ohio State, what it's looked like, Akron, I don't really need to talk about that, nor Western Michigan. The Marshall game, they did good at first. It was really quick, get the ball out, fast routes and try to shock and awe Ohio State. It worked for a little bit and then didn't work too much longer than that. Michigan State came in the first quarter, was very jazzed up, and then got annihilated. That was really the big thing there. They scored 7 points in the first half. Ohio State had 24. And in the first quarter, Michigan State was really, pumped up, and then they got demoralized as hell. 35 minutes compared to 24 minutes time of possession, yards, turnovers, first downs. Ohio State did everything they needed to do. Against Iowa, Iowa has a very good defensive line, very, very good defensive line, but they just couldn't handle the offensive line onslaught that they faced. Iowa was only down by 7 points at halftime, and it didn't seem that bad for most people. It was like, oh, this is a game. It was not a game. Third quarter hit, 21 points for Ohio State, and then the Iowa ended up running and scoring a touchdown with Johnson at the end of the game. And Johnson is the second leading rusher in the country. He's good. He is a very, very good running back. They have a good run game, and just quite simply put, at least at the time they were second, but he had nothing in the tank. Time of possession, first downs, turnovers, total yards, Iowa was doomed. You look at Oregon, obviously in the first start of the season, not so hot. Idaho, they scored their 14 points in the second half, which was concerning, but it is what it is. They moved on to Boise State. Boise State played very good football with Genty. He ended up having quite a bit. He had 3 touchdowns, 192 yards, 25 carries. The week before that, he had 6 touchdowns. If you look at the win probability, there was a time where Boise State should have won that game, and the reason is they won time of possession, first downs, the turnover battle, and total yards. They lost by special teams. So Oregon showed that they can bring themselves back even when the odds are highly against them. They're a competitive team. Oregon State hits, they crush them. They annihilate Oregon State. They annihilate UCLA, and they annihilated Michigan State. And I will say they've done really well, but it is hard to grade Oregon entirely. The reason I'll say that is because they've only played one Big Ten team, and that's Michigan State. UCLA is a Big Ten team, but let's be realistic. They're a brand new member. Oregon feels the same as they do. They're as new of a much of a Big Ten member as Oregon is. Brand new to it. So if you look at the last 5 games for each one of them, Ohio State is favored with those last 5 games compared to Oregon, but Oregon has definitely turned it on in the second half of the season. Well, at least in the second half of the first part of the season. So our prediction on who's going to win, I think it's based on the quarterbacks. I think it's based on, for Ohio State, can you silence the crowd? You have to get the crowd out of the game. Kirby Smart just said to his fan base, y'all need to get louder. You have to give us a better home field advantage. And that should show you, if Kirby Smart and the Georgia Bulldogs are asking their fan base to get more rowdy because they need it, that shows you how important home field advantage is. And I think this crowd's going to be nuts. I think it's going to be the loudest it's ever been. And so for the Buckeyes, you got to silence that crowd. That is so important to get that 12th man off the field because Will Howard's going to need it. So Will Howard, just don't shoot yourself in the foot, and I think the Buckeyes win this game. I think just player to player, the Buckeyes just have the best talent in college football. I think they end up winning it based upon that. Now, I could see Oregon getting that crowd into it and just making it incredibly hard for the Buckeyes, and they pull this one out. I could see that as well. But if I had to bet on the game, I would go for Ohio State, and I'd be okay with being wrong. I just cannot go against Ohio State. It's too hard. That team is really, really good. It's too hard to go with an upset in this game this early in the season.